From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself.
Yo, what is up? Dr. Jason here, Dental Lighthouse Podcast, and just doing a couple solo ramblings, musings. I've been interviewing a handful of people that I think, interviewing them for the podcast, that I think are going to bring a lot of great value. Scott Haberman, my accountant from Eide Bailey, Ryan Gross, my marketing savant from CMO Share. Hopefully you guys found some value in listening to those. Also done a couple interviews with some of you guys. You called out or reached out and you said, Jason, I'm struggling with this or I'm struggling with that. And can I get your perspective? And I said, yeah, let's get on the podcast and talk about it, because I can guarantee you that this issue that you're talking about is something that I've personally dealt with multiple times. And I know there's probably 1,000 dentists out there that are also dealing with this issue. So let's help them, and let's air it out on the podcast. But today, this is probably going to be a short podcast, but I wanted to reiterate something that I think sometimes gets lost with leaders, owners, and that's over communication of the why. One of my favorite quotes from John Gordon is, in the absence of communication, it's human nature for people to fill that gap with negativity. I love everything about that, and I've learned that lesson the hard way. So what does that quote mean to me? It basically means that if we're not over communicating why we're doing something, why we're taking the practice in this direction, why we're implementing this system, why we're changing this protocol. It could be the absolute best reason in the world. You might have the absolute best why, but if you're keeping it to yourself, or if you're assuming that other people know it, or this kind of came up on one of my calls yesterday, or if you are of the mindset of they don't need to know, or kind of said another way, I won't go into that. But and again, I have that mindset too. Sometimes my mindset is like, I'll let them know when they need to know, and that's not the right mindset. I get it, and sometimes I feel that way. It's like when we're parenting, and we give our kids some responsibilities or some direction or some chores or we tell them to do something, and they say why. That's because that's what kids do. Instead of because I said so or because I told you so, maybe we should take a step back, sit in that gap, that stimulus gap, response gap, and give them a why. And, they may not agree with the why, but they might not love the why, but at least we have a why. So I want to just talk about a couple of specific situations that have come up recently, both in my own group and a couple coaching clients that I work with. I was on calls with this week about this. And maybe they resonate with you, maybe they don't. But most importantly, I hope it motivates you to look at some of the decisions that you're making and make sure that you have a very, very sound why attached to it. Because when you do, it's just been my experience that good team members, A and B level team members, they get it. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? Versus, why are we doing this? So let's talk at a high level first. As you guys know, I had my quarterly meetings in our organization a couple weeks ago now, and we're growing, right? We're trying to grow 20% top end year over year. But again, why? Why is that? So if we roll out what our goals are at every quarterly meeting, and I simply say, hey, our 2026 goals are to grow 20% year over year, and here's how we're going to do it. You might get some people that buy in and they want to go to war with you, but I can promise you that a decent amount, a half, a majority, is not going to be all in. They're not going to be fully engaged because there's no clarity around why are we growing 20% year over year. And again, going back to that John Gordon quote, in the absence of communication, people will automatically fill that gap with negativity. There's going to be people that are saying, well, he's only growing because he's money hungry, or he's only growing because he's trying to sell to a bigger DSO, or he's only growing dot, dot, dot. And shame on me if I'm setting a goal or changing a system or outlining a strategy without being crystal clear on the why. So in every meeting, we're talking about what my purpose and vision is for our organization. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details. I'm not going to read it for you, but those of you guys that know me, that are in the group coaching platform that I work with one-on-one, know that I have a purpose and vision statement that's very, very clear. It's made out of 4 different components. And my why, my abbreviated why, is I have dedicated myself to a life of service. Now, who am I trying to serve? I'm trying to first and foremost serve team members. And by that, I mean, I want anyone that wants a great job, an awesome place to work, that wants to feel a sense of fulfillment in what they do, that wants to make on the high end of fair market value for their skill set and the seat that they're in. I want to continue to give those types of people in communities opportunities. So we're constantly hiring. We're constantly trying to grow people. We're constantly trying to take B players and move them to A players, or B or A players and move them into leadership positions, because I want our organization to be a stepping stone for team players to grow, to realize that they have such a purpose that they can feel so fulfilled in what they do. They can be the primary provider for their family. They can have a career and not just a job. That's what motivates me first and foremost from a team member perspective. Secondarily, I want to be able to serve as many patients as possible. I feel that we have such an opportunity with the team that we have, right? I first pour into the team, the doctors, the hygienists, the assistants, the admin people. And now I have this army of individuals who want to go to work and serve the team, serve patients, right? I want a situation where they don't have to be referred out. I want a situation where they are listened to empathetically and we meet them where they're at. I want this for as many people as possible. And then finally, I want to serve communities. So if we have practices in different communities, I want to be able to give back to that community. And it could be something like a simple $100 donation to sponsor the local high school football team, or it could be a $2,500 donation to a family down the street who just lost their house in a fire and they weren't properly insured, and everything in between, right? So that's what gets me out of bed, and that's my why. And as you guys have heard me say on the podcast and then during the servant leadership course, I really try to collaborate with everybody on my team, especially my leadership team. But there's a couple of things that are 100% up to me. And one of those is the vision and the purpose of what we're doing here. So I get to set the vision as the primary owner. I get to set what the organizational purpose is. And with that level of clarity, people can decide if they want to join us or not, right? And no judgment. If you're not on board with where I'm taking things, then there's lots of other places for you to work. But when you just roll out a goal of we're going to grow 20% year over year, and you don't tie in the why, I can assure you, just based on my own personal experiences, excuse me, that it's going to be much, much harder to get buy-in. Clarify the why, and then give people the choice. Do you want to get on board with what we're doing because this is why we're doing it, or is this not the place for you? So that's one way. That's why you should explain the why at a high level. And I want to give you also 2 specific examples that have come up this week of why it's important to explain the why on a lower level. One of them is just a baller dentist who's just acquired a practice next town over. And the practice was good value on the practice. But like you guys have bought practices before, you're experiencing there's a specific culture in that practice that's hard to turn around. There's systems in those types of practices that may be completely idiotic, but that's how they've always done it, right? So this doc with kid gloves is slowly but surely turning around the systems in the office. And one of the systems that he's getting some pushback from is the radical idea of collecting payment at the time of service. And why is this radical? Because the old doc did it this way, right? Hey, the old doc never made me pay at the time of service. Why are you making me pay? Well, it's funny, just like the parenting example, when the kid says, why do I need to do that? I mean, the staff and the patients are basically asking you, well, the old doc did it this way. Why are we changing? Right. And sometimes you can be lucky enough to have people ask why as a reminder to you that you need to communicate the why, but sometimes they don't. And if they don't ask the why and you don't give it to them, then you'll never get the engagement that you need. But the why in this situation is super simple, right? Like the technology that we have nowadays allows us to be super specific with the copays that are going to be needed from the patient. And if we can collect that payment now while you're in front of me, then it saves us a lot of time and labor on the back end of printing out statements, sending out reminders, trying to collect payment, annoying you, the patient, when we could have handled it right here. And then tasking the team to do things on their checklist or to do additional work that never needed to be done. It would never needed to be done if we collected payment right now, right? So the reason that a lot of you guys spend hours per week on your AR is because you're not collecting a fairly accurate copay at the time of service, right? So that's the why, right? And if a patient can't get on board with that why, or a team member can't get on board with that why, then that's awesome, because now we have clarity on what the expectation is and what it's not. And you either need to get on the bus because we're taking off, right? Or you're going to need to find another job. And with these types of situations, it's human nature to be adversarial just because they want to be adversarial. And I feel like it's almost like an 80-20 principle where a majority of common sense people, both employees and patients, will be like, okay, that makes sense. But the 20% that don't, that cause 80% of your problems, it's a great opportunity to say to them, um, you know, I get it. This is the first time we're rolling out this plan or this system, so we can bill you this time. But just be aware that next time we're going to expect payment at the time of service. And if they go to another office, then what an amazing blessing. If a team member continues to fight you, you need to kind of free up their future, because what an amazing blessing. Now, again, I want my team members to be like, we don't think this works because of dot dot dot. Maybe they have a very legitimate reason, right? Maybe you have a blind spot that you're not aware of. And I would give them room or capacity to explain to me why they feel the way that they do. But you better not come to me with the reason of, because we've always done it this way. That's why this won't work, because we've always done it this way. That doesn't fly with me, because I have a bunch of other locations that do it the right way and they kill it, right? So don't feel like you're special. We're doing it this way unless you can convince me that it doesn't make sense to do it this way. And if you can get on board, awesome. If you can't get on board, awesome. That's just creating clarity that our relationship is going to be lasting much longer. So make sure you communicate the why. Another example that came up with a group I'm working with is assisted hygiene. So This group wanted to roll out assisted hygiene for all the right reasons, right? This is one of those practices where they have a very, very robust hygiene department. And if you call and cancel because you're sick, it's going to be 7, 8, 9 months till you get back in the schedule. And I know that that is a relevant and relatable scenario for many of you. So how do you deal with that? Well, you deal with that by hiring more hygienists. Well, what if you can't find hygienists? Or what if you can find hygienists, but you don't have the facility capacity? There's lots of reasons, right? So this particular doctor is like, we should designate 1 day a week, 2 days a week to do some assisted hygiene so we can get these patients back in. So there's the why, right? We're going to do assisted hygiene so these healthy adult recall patients that have fallen off the schedule because of a scheduling conflict or because they're sick or their kid's sick, we don't want to put them out months when they're due now, right? We want to try to figure out a way to get them in. So once a week, twice a month, whatever it is, we're going to have an assisted hygiene day where this hygienist is only going to see, healthy recalls. That's a great why, right? The why is so we can facilitate our core value of customer service or patient experience, whatever core value you have that's tied around getting the patient back in. So that's why we're doing assisted hygiene. Now, if you don't communicate that why to the team ahead of time, if they roll into work and all of a sudden assisted hygiene is scheduled 1 day, then again, John Gordon, in the absence of communication, people are automatically going to fill it with negativity. Why are we doing this, right? If you're blessed enough to have a team that asks why, then you can say, you know what, I'm so sorry. I should have explained this to you. I should have communicated why we're doing this. The reason that we're doing assisted hygiene 1 day a week is because, as you know, it's impossible when patients fall out of the schedule to get them back in, or we're pushing new patients out so far out, or whatever the why is, right? You have to have a legitimate why, and then you have to communicate that to them. If they don't ask what the why is, and you have failed to communicate the why, John Gordon, their mind is going to go to negativity. Why is Doc doing this? Well, he must be trying to drive revenue, or he must be trying to figure out a way to overwork the hygiene department, or he must be, he no longer cares about quality. This place is turning into a mill. We're herding in cattle. Get them in, get them out, right? And this is what people think about. This is what I think about when something happens in my life that the why wasn't explained to me. It happens with youth sports all the time. The coaches will make a change and will neglect to explain the why to the kids first and foremost, but also to the parents that are fully engaged. And guess what's happening? Parents are on the sidelines gossiping, questioning, why is coach doing this? Like, what? I don't get it. Like, and then they're starting to make up ideas in their own head. And I can promise you, these ideas are not based in positivity. They're based in negativity. They're based in scarcity. They're not based in abundance. So again, when there's an absence of communication, that gap is always going to get filled with negativity. That's human nature. And I'm very guilty of that. Like I said, I just referenced that with youth sports. So my point here is always, 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 always over communicate the why. From something as simple as a small system change, like we're going to start to now collect payments at the time of service, to something that's an organizational strategy, like we're trying to grow this X% year over year because of this. The reason that we're doing this is why. This is the why. So always, always, always. So again, appreciate you guys hearing me out there. If you're already communicating the why, amazing. Consider doing it in all facets of your life, with your spouse, with your kids, with your team. Do not have the mindset of they don't need to know, or when they need to know, I'll tell them, right? Again, I used to have that mindset, and it allowed me to fail miserably on my face. So just make sure you have the why. Guys, just a reminder, if any of this content is beneficial for you, I ask you to do two things. Please share it with someone that you feel could benefit from the material. And if you have literally 20 seconds, go to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave me a 5-star review, and just be detailed and why you enjoy the podcast. Leave your name. I'd love to touch base with you, and I'd love to give you a shout out on the podcast. And thank you for that. But when you leave comments, or when you give me a 5-star review, or you share the podcast with someone else, the way that Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all, we're way above my pay grade. But the way it works is the algorithm puts this show in front of other dentists, which ultimately helps me fulfill my why, from a content creator of collapsing time for other docs and other leaders. And if I can help as many people as possible, if I can fold time for them, if I can collapse time for them, if I can get them to where they want to go in a fraction of the time, then I feel like I'm doing my job, and I'm fulfilling my purpose of serving others. So if you have a few minutes, I would appreciate you doing that. It would mean a lot to me. Feel free to reach out to me on my contact information is on the website, thedentallighthouse.com. You can text or email me if you want to hop on a call, if you want to talk about coaching, if you want to, whatever. We can talk about fitness. We can talk about some of the peptides that I'm fooling around with. We can talk about anything and everything that you guys want. So love you guys, and hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.